ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the World Cybersecurity Summit. And right now we're on our final panel discussion, which is a digital revolution panel discussion on the topic digital revolution, the roadmap for the future of AI/ML technologies in Africa. Well, we're looking at talking about cybersecurity, opening the doors to privacy and secure data in every sector using AI framework, increased use of AI and ML in building a dense cybersecurity network, improved broadband and internet access, paving the way for magnified digital opportunities and any possibilities for the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are later to be joined by our eminent panelists. First up, Daniel Adaramola, the Chief Information Security Officer, CISO Unity Bank PLC Nigeria. Well, Daniel, with an extensive technology risk management background spanning 15 plus years, has been instrumental to the success of every organization's cyber risk transformation programs. Daniel has been responsible for the strategy formulation and security assurance at 3 different financial institutions for global clients. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us today. Pleasure having you, Daniel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, also we have Stanley Chege joining us, the Group Chief Information Officer, Jubilee Insurance, Kenya. Stanley has an experience in governance and risk management and further excels in IT management, business process, internal controls, strategic planning, and project management. Thank you so much, Stanley, for joining us today live. Well, great to have you both on the screen. We also have Sandeep Bhaduri, the CEO of GA Insurance Limited, Kenya, joining us. Sandeep has an extensive experience spanning over 15 years, covering all facets of short-term insurance across India, UK, Mozambique, Rwanda, and now in Kenya. He's a leader and an achiever, setting examples in the African continent. Thank you so much, Sandeep, for joining us live today.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, also joining these eminent panelists is going to be Winnie, Sergon, the Head of IT Innovation, Boresha, Sacco Society, Kenya. Well, Winnie, a strong leader and is also a strategic thinker, innovation enabler, technology lover, and a cybersecurity enthusiast with interest in problem solving through automation. Thank you so much, Winnie, for joining us. Yes, we can see you on the screen. Thank you for that, Winnie. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us currently our moderator for this panel discussion, who is Philippe, CISO, NPF Microfinance Bank PLC Nigeria. Well, Philippe is a leader and astute IT and cybersecurity expert with over 13 years experience in cybersecurity governance, IT project implementation, IT management, cybersecurity strategy, and digital initiatives. Thank you so much, Philippe, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And also, just in case our eminent speaker, even Hisham, might join in, he's the CISO Emirates NBD Egypt. He also might join in. Hisham is the Chief Information Security Officer for Emirates NBD, leading the path for innovation and change in Egypt. And he's a cybersecurity expert and has an extensive experience in managing risks and threats. And, let's hope he could also join in. But meanwhile, Philippe, we've got our eminent panelists who are on the stage and screen. With that, thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Also want to thank the hosts of these events for putting it together. I also want to welcome my panelists for coming on board. So we'll be looking at, based on what has been said, digital revolution, the roadmap and the future for AI and machine learning language, technologies in Africa. So we'll be looking at it from the cyber security perspective. Based on what has happened over the last year, the new norm, there has been a revolution in the digital space. And based on what has happened, it has given rise to a whole lot of transformation and a whole lot of rise in terms of cyber security attacks. So vis-a-vis, we'll be looking at it from that perspective. Before we start this panel discussion, I would like to call on my first panelist. We'll look at it. Is there a revolution 4.0, or is there something we are looking at, or we're already in the revolution 4.0 in terms of what has happened in the digital space over the last 1 year? based on the outbreak of the COVID-19 and what should we be looking at. So I'll call on Mr. Daniel to quickly just run us through this. Mr. Daniel, over to you.
Okay, is there a revolution? I think within the definition of what a revolution is, I think we're gradually moving in that direction. You know, okay, first of all, let me just thank Philip for the introduction. Thank you so much for the overview and also the platform provider, which is Trescon. I think this is a viable platform and it's getting bigger and better with the AI show and the cybersecurity show. We look forward to more innovation from Trescon. Okay, all right. So the question, I think with all indicators, things are getting transformed in the way we work as professionals. If you ask about a year or two ago, the kind of transformation we've seen, if you ask any of the top management staff of most institutions, they will tell you it's unprecedented. You have staff working from home at the moment. You have third-party connection in an IT mode in an environment. Regulators also want to keep tab of what is going on in your environment, and also customers also they want more touch points on their mobile. So with what has happened in the last couple of months, if you want to say that's a revolution, I will not disagree with you because the way we used to work has been totally transformed. So and really, ML and AI is actually facilitating this from the cybersecurity aspect. And I believe as we proceed in this discussion, we'll get to see more and more of what AI and ML is doing in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that insightful introduction. I mean, basically, based on what you said, is we've seen the sporadic outbreak of digital revolution across the globe in the Africa space. Meaning, based on the advent of COVID, even organizations who didn't plan for digitalization were forced to digitize. And as a result of that, they were exposed to a whole lot of attacks. So looking at it from that perspective, now based on what we've seen over the years, the digital revolution, there are certain factors or there are certain things that will fast track or facilitate that process to ensure that organizations are able to keep up with the pace and able to still maintain their cyber resilience. Now, I'm looking at improved bandwidth on internet across, paving the way for a magnified digital opportunities. While the opportunities increases, so also the risk exposure and what we tend to face also increases. So I would like to call on Santi to probably throw light on this, improve bandwidth and internet access, paving the way for magnified digital transformation in terms of opportunities and what lies within that space.
Okay. Hi. First of all, thank you, Philip, and thank you for Trescon for organizing this meet. I will actually start from where Daniel has left. The word revolution actually is something which I personally have some reservations on. Revolution always leads to chaos. Last time a revolution was successful was the American Revolution 200 years or 300 years back. But we are seeing at a moment is actually a transformation, but it has yet to reach the inflection point. So when, if you from a CEO, I would be talking much from a CEO perspective, the things which are which we view very strategically. Now, as an organization, almost it is clear that the future is going to be digital, but the question is how and when. Now, what actually COVID did was to pressurize companies to accelerate their thinking in going digital. Now, we as companies, we are still trying to figure out what is going to be the right way. Now, if you see from Kenyan perspective, Kenya has one of the highest number of startups, but you see in terms of actual revenues and profitability, there are very few ventures which have been successful. Now, from an insurance perspective or a financial services perspective, the uptake has not been much. So there is still a mix and match which needs to be done to find out what is the right business model that will actually enhance the uptake of digital products or the digital services, which will lead to transformation. Now, once we talk about digital transformation from a client perspective, what are the things we are talking about? What are the ways we expect, which are the segments we expect from a client point of view that will be impacted? Number one is work, definitely. Number two is learning. Number three is gaming and entertainment. Number four is manufacturing from a corporate point of view. Then there is digital or M-health, or there's a transformation which we expected into the health services, increased use of AI and bots to do at least preliminary level of health diagnosis. And of course, the life at home, how people we of course forget about the people who stay back at home and take care of our homes. The life at home had also changes because the whole experience of interacting with the society changes. People are not able to go out, people are not able to shop, so there is a behavior change, there is a market shaping exercise which is taking place. Now these are trends, but this does not actually mean a transformation or a revolution to a kind. That means the entire different way of things happening. It has happened. Now, if you take, suppose advanced manufacturing, typical bandwidth requirement there is somewhere around 30 to 80 megabits per second. Now, one of the technologies which is supposed to transfer advanced manufacturing is 5G because of its low latency, but we are still yet to get the product mix right. Similarly, in all other segments, you will see that lack of bandwidth is an issue. Now, if you take the indicators of how digitally prepared a country is, so number one of the things you will see, what is the extent of digital infrastructure which is present. So that will actually lead to you to identify how many home users of internet are there, how many people are actually, how many business have a web presence. So these are actually virtual indicators. And if you have a web presence, what is your sales which have been generated through e-commerce? That means webs. So if you take a sum of it, you will find at the core of any transformation activity, even within the office, if your digital transformation, if your digital IT infrastructure is not well done, then even a simple thing like EDMS will be a very big issue. Like you have high heavy documents consuming a huge amount of bits flying around the office, and your digital and your infrastructure is able or not able to support it. Stanley is also from the insurance industry, and I think you will agree to the point that in terms how important even a basic infrastructure is important. Even you see, even when you take for location services, is the location services giving you a right location? Now, I have many apps. I use extensively apps just to keep myself updated. Sometimes I feel that I may become outdated too fast. We see that even so in a typical e-commerce, when delivery services are charged based on distance, are you getting mapped to the right location? So these are the basic things we need to solve first from an African perspective before we can actually embark in something what we call as digital transformation or digital revolution, however way you term it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandip. I think I got a point of what you're trying to say. Is infrastructure is a major issue within the African ecosystem. Meaning, without the right infrastructure, we cannot really experience the digital transformation that we're looking at. And we're talking about the industrial revolution 4.0, for example. If the bandwidths are not fast enough, for example, we're talking about the IoT. IoT will only run on fast internet. I'm talking about the likes of the 5G, meaning the pace at which the transformation will envisage will not be as fast as we think, meaning the need for the right infrastructure to be in place. And in that light, these are transformation we're also looking at. There's also need to ensure that this transformation is also patterned in such a way that there's also a strategic plan in terms of, as you are transforming digitally, there must also be a cybersecurity transformation also, such that all of those digitalization processes, their measures, the right technology are put in place to also guide it. Because the more you digitize, the more you also expose to a lot of cyber attacks. So a lot of industries over within the last 1 year, they digitize their processes, but they were not conscious of the risk associated with it in terms of cyber attack. And that's why it gave room to a whole lot of processes and a whole lot of attacks in terms of malware, in terms of ransomware attack and a whole lot. So in view of that, I'll come about to my third panelist. Let's look at now, based on the whole transformation process, cybersecurity is opening the doors to privacy and secure data in every sector using AI framework. Because based on this, a lot of people, their data has become exposed. Some country, let's say, for example, let's say in the likes of Nigeria, would have some framework we are adopting now that has to do with data privacy. There are some countries within the African subspace that may not have put such a policy in place, because the digital transformation, as you may like it, whether you like it or not, is giving room to a whole lot of privacy issue. Now, I will come to Stanley. What is your take? Opening the door to data privacy, secure data in the sector using AI. What should be the approach? How should we manage this process in terms of data privacy and secure data?
Thank you, Philip. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Thank you. So the issue of data privacy is so pertinent. It's been discussed at the board level now, because a good example is the Kenyan Data Privacy Act of 2019 that says that in case you contravene or in case you're not compliant, then you can be fined up to Kenya shillings, 5 million shillings, or 2% of the turnover, whichever is higher. So when you discuss such numbers at the board level, then they listen and they put in place processes, the tools, and the people to ensure that is implemented. Because not only would the absence of compliance mess around with that kind of fine, but also think about the reputation damage. The reputation damage that comes into play. So the Data Privacy Act of 2019 was established in 2019 to help data subjects or customers ensure that their data is not misused by the processors or the controllers. And to let you know more in terms of that act, it's so pertinent because organizations have now put in place the positions of a data processing officer. And that requires that they look far and wide for the best talent so that the data processing officer can help organizations comply to this regulation. And to get such an officer, obviously, they must be highly trained, they must be highly experienced, they must be a business centric, they must understand the business. Because it all starts, remember, from the business imperative and strategy. Because data foundation and data quality are there to facilitate business strategy. So the DPO has been hired in most organizations that are really processing financial data or any data that has got criminal issues around it. So banks, insurance companies, government organizations and agencies, they have been mandated to obviously invest in a data processing officer to ensure that they can meet the objectives. So the most important things to remember is that no business is too small to be impacted by this regulation. The same case applies. There's no business too small to be hacked, and hackers can expose customer data and mess up their reputation. Cyber criminals are opportunistic predators who are looking to steal the company's valued assets, either money or data. Let's remember that. That is the overarching message. If the network servers, applications, data, and laptops and mobile devices are not well protected, a breach can occur. So we are putting in, you cannot forget the CIA triad, that we must maintain the confidentiality, the integrity, and availability of information. Privacy has now become a human right embedded in the Kenyan constitution. So the regulations are giving the data subjects a lot of power. Privacy becoming a human right. And data protection laws are therefore designed to protect personal data from misuse, exposure, or exploitation by private corporations and public entities who collect and process this data. So it's becoming very, very important that organizations take this seriously, Philip. So that, what are the implications? I can go through that very fast. What are the implications that we need to do? What do we need to do? What we need to do is failure to comply with the act obviously results in penalties. Okay, brand name, a present failure, even though barely perceived, could result in loss of consumer trust. Just imagine the attrition of customers. It can affect customer retention and cause significant damage to the brand and company reputation, like I said earlier. Then we have to entrench internal controls and internal processes, and practice must be consistent with what we have promised the customers in the privacy statement. All websites must have a privacy statement. They must have a cookie policy. So we must ensure this kind of internal processes. And then domestic and international implications. So like for the Kenya Act, outlines stringent conditions for transfer of data out of the country. Moreover, for a clientele of foreign nationalities, international laws such as GDPR of Europe also apply. So for Kenya, for organizations that are having attachments to international organizations, obviously, they must be touched by GDPR. So these are the implications. And finally, legal litigation from consumers, privacy advocates, business partners, even criminal penalties for wrongful disclosure of protected and sensitive personal information. So these, Philip, are the implications, and that's why we are putting in place the people, the process, and technology to ensure that we are compliant with the new regulations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Stanley. That was quite exhaustive.
Philip, with your permission, if I may add to what Stanley has said.
Go ahead.
Now in Kenya, the Data Protection Act actually has been modeled as after GDPR, and privacy is paramount. So there are actually two things in the Data Protection Act. One is uniquely identifiable personal information, another is uniquely identifiable health information. Now, as insurance companies who are in the health business, so we actually have access to uniquely identifiable health information. Now, in terms of if you put it under risk matrix, so they actually are considered to be most risky and hence to be protected more. So any kind of breach on there actually attracts very strong liability, if I may say. Now there is another thing in terms of transfer of data. When you are dealing with vendor, we need to see whether the vendor is compliant with the Office of Data Protection. So we just cannot go ahead and work with any vendor unless and until they actually give us an assurance they are compliant with all the aspects of Kenyan Data Protection Act, no matter how big they are. So this is actually the liability which has been put and entrusted on all Kenyan companies dealing with personalized information. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandip, for that. Actually, that is very key. Even in Nigeria, we have a similar regulation, which is also a subset from the GDPR, is the NDPR. So meaning basically what needed to be done is more collaboration within the African nations. Now, for those nations that have not adopted or don't have any policy around this, the need for them to begin to draft a policy based on what we have in the GDPR to ensure that issues that relate to data privacy are adequately taken care of, to ensure that the client's privacy is protected. Then, from that perspective, still on that, Stanley, I'm still coming back to you. I just wanted to talk about are there frameworks in terms of artificial intelligence that we can use to manage issues that relate to data privacy and secure data? Are there frameworks or?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Philip. The frameworks that have been established for a long time and that have been tested for a long time, frameworks like NIST, the National Industrial Standards and Technology Standards, ISO 27001, COBIT, these standards can be drafted and adapted better to start dovetailing and aligning with AI and ML algorithms, so that instead of looking for a needle in a haystack, especially if you want to know whether you're compliant or not, ML and AI can crunch that data very fast, in a matter of seconds, as opposed to a human effort that can take days and months. So we are seeing more and more companies. A good example is Fraud.net. A company called Fraud.net has come up with AI frameworks built around these best practice frameworks that can help a company know patterns, trends of fraud, patterns, trends of customer data being misused, patterns and trends of employees colluding with agents, and not only with agents but with vendors. So AI is being leveraged as much as possible. Here right now, as we talk, I'm in consultation. I'm working closely with Flow.net to see how we can improve how to gather that data very fast and be able to make insightful decisions, very, very data-driven decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, Winnie, I'm with you. Just trying to get more info. Now, based on what the other panelists have said, talking about what needs to be done from the privacy angle, from the revolution 4.0, looked at the full bandwidth. Now, how can we increase the use of AI and ML in building a dense cybersecurity network, moving away from the traditional security network approach, moving away from the traditional firewall approach? How can we increase the use of AI? Because why we're talking about this is, the threat pattern now has gone beyond the conventional pattern that we know. Vis-a-vis, for example, maybe I've defined certain policies, right? There may be a threat that may not come in view, or probably will not come in the same pattern of the policy I've defined. In that kind of situation, what happens? So, Winnie, I want to speak on how do we increase the use of AI in building a dense cybersecurity network.
Okay, thank you so much. And this question sums up the discussion from my fellows in terms of what the infrastructure does, what data we are generating, and how best we can be able to protect this data and even make good use out of it by the application of the fourth industrial revolution. We agree that everything, or most of the things, have really moved digital. We are generating volumes and volumes of data each and every second, each and every minute. Consider, for example, in Kenya, our biggest giant, M-Pesa, Safaricom, how much data or transactions are happening. Those are volumes and volumes of data being generated within a minute, within a second. Also, look at the frequency of how this data is being generated. That might not require the traditional models for us to analyze and be able to get whether this data is going correctly or it's hitting the right accounts. Look at the intensity and the accuracy of that data that is being generated. How intense are we supposed to be very thorough in saying that this is correct, everything is going as it should be, and at the right time? Because according to the CIA triad, you have to give the client what exactly they have requested for. Complicated nature of our networks, for example. We have so much integrations with several vendors. We have so much integrations with state agencies and many other distributed nature of our networks. So when you look at all this put together, you realize that adoption of AI and machine learning is very key, because they can be able to crunch that large data and be able to give you insightful information of what is happening at what time. The methodology that applies will even give you more accuracy, as opposed to the traditional model where you could put it in Excel, summarize based on this band, then you have the other band, and at the end of it all, within a short time, you're supposed to make an informed decision. So a methodology using AI and machine learning is very key, very critical and very important at this point, whereby you can be able to ascertain really, this is the flow, this is how it's been. If anything goes to become an outlier, that should be a red flag, definitely, to be given immediate and prompt attention, so that the security of our infrastructure, of our network and our data is well guaranteed. We understand that there have been so much changes in the digital space. Some new laws are coming into place, like the 2019 General Data Protection Act in Kenya, for example. And you realize that most of the organizations and companies have been doing a 5-year strategic plan. So there is need also to relook and remap all this to make sure that as much as we are compliant, our strategy is also informing us how to move, and we are totally protected from the strategic point and also the internal policies that we have in our department as IT, or the generators of this information and the processors of the information, so that at all times we are saying we are in tandem with the general law, we are in tandem with what should be done, and at the same time we are protected as much as possible. So AI and ML is unavoidable at this era that we are in. We have to get how we can be able to best protect our work environments, protect the people we're working with and the customer data at all times using the AI and ML, because it's the easiest way to always get reports which are not biased, based on statistics and based on the trend of the data that we have from a bigger angle. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Winnie, for that wonderful exposure. Now, I'll come back to Danny. I still want us to talk a bit more on this before we take a look at other things. Now, we're talking about building a dense cybersecurity network, use of AI and ML. Now, in terms of modern day attack, let me give a scenario. I had this particular scenario where we thought the configuration was completed, but only for the system to do an analysis to say, oh, your security posture is 5/10, based on the understanding of what we've configured. And it highlighted the areas that configuration needs to be done, what needs to be done, and all that. Based on that, we did a review, and that improved the security posture. Assuming we don't have solutions that are AI and machine learning driven, just imagine what that happened to that particular organization in that particular scenario. So, Mr. Dan, I just want to speak on this. Now, looking at the network, the network security is very key for every organization standpoint. So, if you're going to have issue of data privacy, issue of ransomware, issue of a phishing attack, most times all of these 70% will come from the network. So, from that perspective, what should be done by organization are also looking at the African cyberspace? Danny, thank you.
I can tell you the future is bright when it comes to the application of AI and ML in cybersecurity. That I can assure you, because of the trend we've seen in the last couple of years. To corroborate what Winnie said a while ago, from the strategic point of view, there's been so much enablement in terms of the directors and the top management are supporting the call for innovation when it comes to cybersecurity, because the regulation actually builds on them to actually get the best and report appropriately. So from the regulatory aspect and also from the strategy aspect, there's been so much traction, and that will give a lot of leverage to new innovation to come. But the areas that we need to see more alignment and more speed, and I think that's the area you are alluding to, that is in the area of operation in which we are seeing much more innovation of the use of AI, and the use of AI and ML is not intruding into business operation. What I would say is this: given the imperative of the speed and the mileage that the sector want to achieve, I still believe there will still be a lot of human-machine interaction. Because if you look at platform that does a lot of heuristics because of 0D and behavior analytics, some of those platforms would definitely still have some false positive. If not to call particular vendor name right now, in most environments you have a platform that does learning of the environment for quite a while. After they've learned the environment, you now begin to allow those policies to take effect. Despite that, we're still seeing cases in which, like you mentioned, you're having the case of 5/10, some, malware still coming in and stuff. And that's why I said that human-machine interaction will definitely still persist for a while. But area that I believe will help expedite, operational, achievements is where we have threat intelligence, because most of this AI ML platform depends on a lot of data. The more thread feed you have, and the more collaboration that we have. For example, for most of the platform, they feed on what's being pulled from different environments. And those data, the more they get fine-tuned, the better, the kind of response you get from this AI ML platform. So I would say sincerely, the push from the strategic point and the regulatory point is actually there. But we're getting a lot of mileage when it comes to the operational base. But what will actually give us a lot of mileage is the fact that there will still be a lot of man-machine interaction to fine-tune the data, to help us configure the policy to ensure that we're getting the right response, and also, from threat intelligence perspective, I believe with that in place and with the framework Stanley, as mentioned, definitely will make a lot of mileage, and those 5/10 kind of response you're getting will improve to 7, 8, 9. I believe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danny. Actually, that was exactly what happened in that scenario. Based on the threat reports and the setting rules that needed to be configured, when that was done, the evaluation was done automatically, and that improved the position. Now, you made mention of the strategic plan, talking about support from leadership and policy around it. I think within the African space, I think there's something very key which also needs to be taken into consideration. Is most of this regulation is measured around financial sector. A lot of other sectors are being neglected, like the health sector, insurance, and all that. They're not being given this same keen attention as they give to the financial. Yes, I understand that yes, the financial sector plays a very key role, but you know what? A breach from this other sector has a way of affecting even the financial sector itself. So I think there is need for there to be a complete interconnection between all of these sectors, whether it is financial sector or the insurance, such that all of these work together in collaborating, ensuring that we have a safe African space. Now, let's go back to Mr. Sandip. Now, looking at, we've talked about some other things. Now, let's look at it from the technology point of view. What do you think should be done in terms of, okay, ensuring that in this digitization process, while digitizing, we still ensure that we maintain that level of security posture, that we ensure that every organization should ensure that the African space is safe and we are resilient in terms of any cyber attack. Something I want to just speak on this.
Okay. You see, one of the first things you need to do is to buy a cyber insurance policy, actually. So that is irrespective of how, the way the cyber attacks are getting sophisticated. So no amount of cybersecurity measures you put forward, you cannot 100% say that you are unpenetrable. So that has happened recently. I think you heard the news of what happened in the gas pipeline, which was, when we talk about cybersecurity, we always focus on insurance companies and bank and the financial sector. Recently, there was in last year, I think the Ford plant in Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic was actually shut down because of a cyber attack. Now, from a technology, I'm not even coming to the technology portion of it. Because when you start introducing these concepts in the organization, it has to start from the L&D effect, actually, from learning and development point of view. From a learning and development perspective, it has to go into, because we are talking about something which is emerging issues, where we still are yet to understand what exactly is the scope of it. So it comes with the L&D, from the L&D initiative, wherein you put in place procedures first, then the awareness, then you do randomized tests to see, then you put in place the right technology, then which your L&D effort will result in adoption of this technology and put in place correct behavior and thinking in the employees. That is the basic, and that's where I think most of the people get it wrong, actually. A very simple thing. How many, we did a test in our organization, is that how many people just leave their laptop in their table and go home without even locking it. So that, and we hold very sensitive information. We have credentials inside our laptops, which will allow, if a person is of correct mind, to hack into, to gain access. If he gains access to the VPN connection, what we have with our laptops, he can gain access to a lot of systems where we operate it. So, technology for me, again, from a strategic point of view, what we try to do, technology from my point of view actually comes in second. First actually comes the learning and development portion, sensitization of people, having put in place, where people appreciate the various processes, procedures. Then you have to understand, people have to understand what is going to be the breach response. If there is a ransomware attack, what exactly do you need to do? Now, in this kind of cases, having a cyber insurance actually helps, because that is, I'm not speaking about others, but with GA, the cyber insurance, what we provide, we provide a breach response. Then we have partners who actually remotely take in control of your system and tell what are the things which needs to be done. What is your incident response plan? So once you have all these things in place, then you select the right kind of cyber technology which you will use to protect your network. So technology for me comes second, first comes the people.
Thank you very much for giving that something very key. I think I took from that comment you made is issue of cyber insurance. I think that is actually something that is also coming up within the cyber security space, where organizations need to begin to ensure that they are insured against any cyber attack. I know in doing that, also, like you mentioned, it doesn't come with the technology first. If the procedure, the processes are not in place, even the cyber insurance procedure may not actually work effectively. You cannot leave your door open and say because you are insured, you should not protect. There are also measures that also need to be put in place. Okay.
Exactly. What happens is that, I'll tell you, just if I may take 1 minute of your time. When you buy a cyber insurance, you will be asked exactly these questions. You won't get insurance if your policies and procedures are not right. Maybe when you buy cyber insurance, it will prompt you to do certain things, because otherwise you'll not get an insurance cover.
That is true.
In fact, I should get a call from Winnie.
Winnie, what do you have to say? Okay, let's hear from Winnie. What's your thoughts on that?
On the issue of cyber security, yes, we are living in very unprecedented times. Times have changed. Our business has moved from the normal queuing in the bank to the phone. And also our hackers from all over are really trying to get a fortune out of this digital transition where people are using the phone and the rest. So yes, I agree with him, until you also take care of the any eventualities, do several penetration testing, do system audits from time to time, is when maybe you can qualify for that insurance cover that is talking about. Otherwise, it will be another cost that I'll say might also render us not to be in business, considering what kind of environment that we're working in. So I agree with you. As much as the other aspect of insurance is there, I would suggest also that most of us should be able to do R&D as fast as possible, so that at least we can be able to counter what kind of attacks that really are about to happen. For example, when the ATM jackpotting happened, it was not the first incident in the globe. When it happened to the country Kenya is when you realize that back 2 years ago, it had happened in the US, and what exactly happened. So there's that need of investing more in R&D, so that if you realize that there's this risk likely to pose on your area, you take care and protect all the possible ways. Because those guys, once you've gotten away, you can be able to manifest in terms of getting a fortune illegally, they'll always replicate the same in other places. So they have already invested in their own R&D, and now they are now replicating and reaping from it. So personally, on the technology aspect and the rest, I'll say investment also much more on the R&D, on the security and everything is very key, in addition to getting the insurance from Sandip. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Winnie, for that. Okay, we're almost getting to the concluding part of this session. So I just want to hear from each of the panelists, 1 minute each, starting from Stanley. Based on what we've heard so far from all our panelists, looking at the evolution 4.0, what's digital evolution and the digital transformation brings, the opportunities, the challenges. In summary, what would be your take home for our viewers? Over to you, Stanley, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So revolution, digital transformation. And you see with transformation, you're talking about enabling and leveraging social mobility, analytics, cloud, Internet of Things, AI. All these technologies are coming into play at the same time. And for any organization to be ahead in terms of competitive landscape, they must move very fast to start leveraging these technologies, especially data analytics and AI. So for them to succeed, for organizations to succeed, they need to start with that strategy level, but they must also put in place the culture that facilitates, enables that transformation to happen. So the culture overhaul has to happen, where there are shared values of skills, staff, structure, and staffing. Once the culture is in place, then putting in place the frameworks that we talked about, the NIST, the ISO 27001, the ISO 22301 for business resilience. So putting in place those processes that make the organization very effective, very robust. And finally, obviously leveraging the technologies. More and more organizations are leveraging technologies that help ensure data is not misused or perpetrated, including database activity monitoring tools, privileged account management, because the IT department holds the keys to the kingdom. So privileged account management is very important. Putting in place tools to secure your brand, especially on portals that are front-facing, your websites that are front-facing, because it just takes one customer to deface it, or one hacker to deface that website or that portal. And more organizations, like Winnie said, are moving towards the branchless kind of a model, away from the brick and mortar branch, and going to the 90%, 95% of transactions are going to digital products that are digitally enabled. So it just takes one hacker to deface your website or your portal and bring your brand down. So this requires a very cohesive approach, very comprehensive approach in terms of the people, the process, and technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sandip, your last word, 1 minute, please.
Pardon me, sorry, I didn't get it.
Yeah, I say in conclusion, what is your final take for our viewers based on what we talked about, the future for AI, machine language, cyber security, and all that?
See, in conclusion, what I'm going to say is that in terms of a total digital revolution, what we are talking about, we have not reached the inflection point. I think, in my personal opinion, it will take somewhere around 3 to 4 years more, where a rapid market shaping exercise in terms of consumer behavior needs to happen to actually achieve that. And secondly, we also do not, in the market, we also do not have the right kind of products. So there is still a lot of experimentation, what has been going on. That's why I feel that it will take another 3 to 4 years to reach an inflection point where there will be a proliferation of product, because somebody somewhere will get it right. And then there will be further developments on it. And in the meantime, one of the things is actually, and to succeed for any digital revolution to succeed, the basic parameter is what is the digital infrastructure of that particular country. And so that is somewhere, because digital infrastructure is as paramount as any other infrastructure. So that's why it's called an infrastructure. So I think once we get these two things right, there'll be a proliferation. It's just like, YouTube happened when actually YouTube was the not first streaming platform in the world. There were others, but they came at the wrong time when bandwidth was a huge issue. YouTube came exactly when there was an incremental growth in the bandwidth technology, so that the streaming became possible, and that led to the proliferation of YouTube and further platforms and others in the streaming services. So the timing and the infrastructure has to be matched. That's when actually you will see a major transformation happening.
Thank you very much, Sandip, for that. Winnie, what is your final take home? And what should be the way forward for organization?
Okay. Technology is here to stay. We've been previously they were saying the world will become a digital village. It's more than that now. It's here with us. Technology is here to stay. Systems, softwares, and everything is becoming sophisticated each and every minute. There's so much automation now, on top of AI coming and machine learning, and so many other things that will come beyond our current state of projection. Security is becoming a key concern. 10 years ago, 7 years ago, it was crippling into the market. But now what are we talking about? It's a monster in the house. As much as technology is running parallel, the security of this is also running very fast with it. And always I'll say that, what are the steps that we are doing to secure our technologies that we are deploying from time to time? What are these basic steps that you've done to make sure that we don't get to the worst case scenario? For example, enumerate all the integral points with your vendor. The same time, employ or have the departments well beefed up, and the additional, all the employees or all the participants within an institution, are they aware of the dangers? Are they basically just being aware, because they are the first entry points when it comes to sabotage, when it comes to attacks, when it comes to leaking of this information, because without sharing or disclosing that information with the attacker, it will be a bigger exercise for them to penetrate, to reach out to you. So what I would say is that as they become sophisticated, we also have to become sophisticated with the technology. We move with the times and learn from the presidents in other areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Winnie. Finally, Daniel. So from a perspective, how do we, in some way, to be more proactive in mitigating this cyber-related risk from that perspective? And just give a summary. Thank you.
A summary in 30 seconds. I will say 3 things: capacity development, and capacity development. Because I always mention in the architecture of process, technology, and people, you can have all the technology deployed, the AI, ML deployed, you can have your process optimized, but question is the people that will support this infrastructure actually requires, that optimize that's, capacity as it were. And also to augment the capacity development, I also believe that use cases as being seen in developed sector like the Western, like the like in Europe and America, those use cases can be reused over in terms of optimizing the environment. So with those two things in place, I don't have any doubt when it comes to technology. We've seen so much technology in the environment, but when it comes to the process and the people, I believe that's one area where we need to really maximize. And with that in place, we'll get the best of AI and ML in cybersecurity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Meaning, in summary, we're in a global world, meaning technology is evolving, so also the chat landscape is evolving. Meaning there has to be a proactive approach. Talk about process, we talk about human capacity development, talk about learning, also talk about the awareness and the strategic plan. All of these put together will ensure that as there is a revolution in the digital space, this space is also adequately protected. Once again, I want to say a very big thank you to the host of these whole events for making it possible for us to collaborate and share knowledge. This is actually one of the very key aspects in ensuring we build a very safe and secure cyberspace. Thank you all to my panelists and over to Bhaduri. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Philippe. Thank you, Daniel, Stanley, Sandeep, and Winnie for joining us today live at the World Cybersecurity Summit. Thank you once again.